Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Late Show. We are going to talk watches tonight, but allow me a very self indulgent moment on this most self indulgent of all watch streams. I actually made it to the hallowed pages of Hodinkee. So let's take a look at that. Where are we? There we go. This is piece published by Anthony Traina, with photos taken by him. He was there at the cocktail party that they threw together at the Beverly Hills boutique of the watchmaker's watchmaker, with many interesting examples of their collectibles present. After all, uh, this was a launch event for the collectibles, which is the JLC's continuous curation from their own archive of 17 iconic models. There were 12 in the first installment, 11 in this particular one. 17 models that they have identified to source in the long term, all of which are presented in the book, in the companion volume that they have published and that is already available through Mr. Porter, and of which I was gifted a copy. So I'm very happy about that. You can see, for example, here the Memovox Lapis Lazuli, which actually is not a stone dial, but the black and blue texture of the dial or pattern of the dial is so reminiscent of the stone that the collectors have come to call this particular version Lapis Lazuli, as you can see here as well. It's simply a blue lacquered dial, which I think aged in that particular way, even though you can more or less see this particular color scheme with different kinds of patterns. This particular example with an Art Deco sunray dial on black lacquer with sweep center seconds was sold by the end of the evening. Variations of the Memovox from the 70s with that beautiful drop, like water drop style dial. There's the companion volume, which apparently grew out from a mere pamphlet. Here is a triple calendar with the moon phase indicator, which was, of course, most famously pictured on Pablo Picasso's wrist. This particular piece, too, this particular piece as well, was already sold by the end of the evening. A gentleman walked out with it. I don't blame him. It's a gorgeous piece with those elongated teardrop lugs. an interesting duoplan with a black dial. These are very elegant women's jewelry pieces. Some interesting shots of those oval memovoxes, which have a very sporty appearance with their colorful dials. Some of these pieces are still available, and they're also available for you to see and check out in the Beverly Hills boutique of Jaeger-LeCoultre until they travel somewhere else, but I think they should be here for a little while. These particular pieces were exhibited on the next day at Mayburn, the Mayburn Hotel in Beverly Hills, where they had a panel discussion. Mathieu Sauret, Eric Wind, and Charlie Dunn had a very interesting panel discussion on the collectibles. And a number of archival pieces, about a dozen, were actually at hand. These were specifically pieces that were curated from the manufacturer's own museum, but not for sale. Some of my favorites, of course, which I showed on my Instagram, the Futurematic Porthole, the world's first fully self-winding watch. As you can perhaps already intimate from the absence of the crown, the design, both for the purity and balance, but also for functionality, eliminates the winding crown. There is a crown for time setting on the back, which sits flush with the case back, which has a stop seconds mechanism, the so-called hacking seconds, that allows you for the precise setting of time. And dispensing with the winding mechanism, of course, the watchmakers gained some extra space in the dial, in the caliber, which allowed them to have a larger balance wheel. I would love to see this movement in action, but obviously it's a closed case back. That, of course, means enhanced precision, but also a larger balance wheel is a little more sensitive, of course, so it can be set in motion by even the slightest movement, which, of course, for a watch that is only wound by the bumper rotor mechanism, self-winding mechanism, is quite crucial. It's a beautiful balanced design. The Futurematic was more frequently found with the two subdials at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, one for the power reserve, and at 3 o'clock you have the seconds. This is the famous porthole, which basically converts those subsidiary dials to porthole-like windows with polished flanges, which is a beautiful aesthetic and very, very unique indeed. The model was introduced in 1951, and the calibers that powered the porthole versions in 1956. Really beautiful watches and quite rare. And really a great example of how JLC both represents design aesthetic value and technical innovation at one and the same time. Hey, Corrado, thank you so much. Thank you. You're too kind. Um, yeah, so this th- this is yours truly. The whole feature, I think, is a big W for the beautiful wrist shots you will see a little below, and big L, of course, for male pattern baldness. But what can you do? I will have to find some artificial way of growing this hair back. Some implants harvested from my back hair would do just fine, I believe. Or even my arm hair. I mean, you can kind of balance it out. Look, I mean, all the hair I am missing here would have been, yeah, could have been harvested from here. I mean, look at this. Like, I know there's a God, but why distribute these things so inequitably? We want socialism for body hair. That's the revolution we need. But all of that being said, this is a great wrist shot, thanks to Tony Traina, of course, who honored this beautiful cover girl with a shot outside, and that's the beautiful dual spring barrel caliber with the 8-day power reserve. And as you can see, it is a sight to behold. It is in and of itself a marvel of Art Deco architecture. Beautiful textures between the shallow Geneva stripes of the bridge plates and the fine houndstooth of the shirt and the glam plaid jacket. Again, please indulge me. I'm having a little moment here. It is really a beautiful watch. As you guys know, it is unfortunately lost to the ages now, but that watch was, of course, Archie Luxury signature model. That was his 40th birthday gift from his beloved wife. Mine perhaps is not as sentimental, but I love it dearly. Yes, so big W for the wrist shots. Thanks to Tony Traina, of course, and his lens. Big L from male pattern baldness. But hey, at least I'm well dressed. But yes, there were so many other beautiful pieces. This is the Memovox that they call Snowdrop. Apparently, there's even a more unique, rarer version in white gold. I think Lemon Drop would be a more interesting nickname for this, and the Snowdrop perhaps should be saved for the white gold. But I think you could have a very interesting collection indeed, just from all these different variations of the Memovox. And if you remember, Charlie Dunn was my guest on this very platform, on this channel, when we talked about the JLC Memovox, as well as other alarm wristwatches, not to mention other collectibles from JLC. So I'm gonna send the link right there. Because it's well worth exploring the memo box as a genre. Speaking of interesting examples, this one is the Memovox parking meter, right? We joke around quite a lot about how we use our modern dive watches, our modern chronographs in terms of their timing capabilities. It seems that Jeju Lecoultre was in on the joke quite early, since this is something that they have actually come up with already in the 50s with a sign for the parking meter for the 15 minutes specifically. And there's the true subdial version of the Futurematic, which lacks the stylized script, perhaps, but offers the same convenience and the same power reserve indicator and off-center subsidiary dial for the seconds. That's a closer shot of the Memovox in gold on the matching brick style bracelet. Andrea Persson, a JLC representative who was wearing a beautifully feminine version of the reverso with a black dial. This was the heritage director Mathieu Sauret's own reverso in pink gold, one of my absolute grails, as it happens to be, with that chocolate brown dial. Released around 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Relatively limited in number. And this particular piece, of which I'm going to post some wrist rolls soon, is a reverso in its classic sizing and a beautiful blue lacquered dial. And here's a beautiful Cartier piece in pink gold, pink on pink on Josh Handizade's wrist. Ah, this is a nice one. A nice fuchsia 1675 Rolex GMT Master on the Jubilee bracelet. The Tudor Rowing Blazers Neon Noir, the Black Bay 58, and from the third installment of the Seiko 5 Rowing Blazers collaboration, you have the pink dial, Seiko 5, dress KX model, so to speak. a very balanced and stunningly warm yellow gold version of the JLC Geophysic. I think that one, was it still part of the collectibles or is it sold already? Let me see. Let me see what we have here. I think that one is just a museum piece. Actually, it's not for sale. And that was again a full gold Memovox on its matching bracelet that was on Charlie Dunn's wrist that night. How was that? There was a There's a Universal Genève Tri-Compax in gold with the champagne dial and the famous pop rock duo Ali and AJ. Ali wearing her Patek 404, I want to say. Yeah, 404J. And sorry, AJ wearing the Patek 404J and Ali wearing her 6-digit Daytona with the white dial 116520. There's Fred Savage with his Memovox. The new Duoface Tourbillon, which was put on Lenny Kravitz's wrist in a recent promotion. And here are a few shots of the panel discussion, and including a shot of Eric Wind with his beautiful US limited edition Reverso tribute to 1931 from 2011 with those syringe hands. These were released in 2 runs of 100 examples, so quite limited in number and very hard to snag once, if and when they fall onto the secondary market at this point. Here's a new friend, Alex, and his unique Master Mariner. And this is actually a piece with the famous caliber 101. I think Wind Vintage still has this piece in their inventory. As you guys know, 101, when it was introduced, was the smallest mechanical watch movements ever designed, and I believe it remains exactly that, even up to this day. It was what the late Queen Elizabeth wore on her coronation, or rather, she wore a similar bracelet watch that ran on a caliber 101. All right, so very very great work of photography and reporting here by Tony Trena. I'm very happy to be included, especially happy because I was wearing my beloved Reverso. So that was a great way to begin today. All right, so we are going back to the Fine Watches auction preview of Bonhams London. It is coming up already tomorrow, starting at 2 p.m. local. So hopefully we will be able to get through most of the pieces today. I've covered basically the first 24 or so. If you have any questions, if you want me to delve deeper into any of the lots, feel free to send in the number with a super chat, and I will be more than happy to dive right in with some significant horological and historical detail. In the meantime, we're looking at lot number 32, which is a beautiful Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 6263, big red in the Panda dial configuration. With a silvered background against which you have the black chronograph registers and a bakelite / acrylic bezel insert in the ring, the aesthetic of which and the utility of which, that's the recent generation of the Daytona 126-500 has also adopted. This piece apparently comes with service papers from 2015, a spare link, some accompanying product literature, as well as a Rolex box. The serial number places the piece right in the middle of the 1970s. This particular example of the Panda Big Red reference 6263 at lot number 32 has a pre-auction estimate of 35,000 to 45,000 pounds sterling. We have already looked at Dame Vanessa Redgrave's piece that is consigned here by only its second owner, has gone through some unfortunate modifications at Rolex's own service centers, but still a fascinating watch with very strong provenance that links it back to Vanessa Redgrave's filming of the 1966 flick Blow Up by Antonioni. That piece has an estimated value of 20,000 to 30,000 in pounds sterling. An interesting example of the so-called Steve McQueen, even though it's a watch that's the king of cool, never wore by all accounts, certainly was never photographed with. That honor largely fell to his submariners and, of course, to the Hoya Monaco, during the filming of Le Mans. I think this one is interesting because it is it has aged in a way that reminds you perhaps even more closely of the new Black Bay Pro, which of course has the 24-hour hand rendered in yellow. Um, there, there are some catalog pictures, some advertisements from the early introduction of this watch. And in those photographs, in that documentation from the early 70s, 71, you can see that this is almost a fire red, but as you know, due to defect in the paint that was used for that arrow tip 24-hour hand, a lot of them aged in this peculiar way to turn them into a very attractive color of orange. Some have turned to this particular shade of yellow, or even lighter, with some models having this white out aesthetic to all the hands, which made the collectors sometimes call them the albino version. I also love the particular layout of the luminous material that marks every single one of the 24 hours, and not only the even numbers. This is a piece that is in a good, honest condition. It comes with a service box as well as its original punched warranty papers, which dates the purchase of the watch back to the Christmas Eve in 1973, 78, I wanted to say. Several service papers and a spare full oyster bracelet with matching end links. One of the iconic pieces, of course, and quite attractive in the version that it's offered here. The connoisseur's choice, so to speak. Eric Wind actually just received one as a personal addition to his collection for his birthday this year. He was wearing it proudly during the Los Angeles trip. This particular example at lot 35 is expected to fetch an amount somewhere in the range between 12,000 to 18,000 pounds sterling. Hey, Junior. I'm glad you made it back to Michigan, man. Nice to see you back, big brother. At lot 36, we're looking at an example of a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 6265. Unlike the 6263 Big Red that we were looking at, this piece has a matching tachymeter in stainless steel, a reverse panda configuration on the dial, and again, screw down pushers. Shot on the wrist here for reference 6265, which apparently comes with service papers from 08/2022 and insurance valuation from all the way back in 1974. The serial number roughly dates the watch to 1973, and apparently, pardon me, the crown was replaced during a recent service. That's something that the lot description notes. There is the lot 36 for a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 6265 from around 1973. The piece has a pre-auction estimate of 40 to 60,000 pounds sterling. We have a Panna or cream dial Rolex Explorer 2 for the next one. I'll take a short break here. Please hit the like button. We're looking at tomorrow's Bonhams Fine Watches auction that is going to take place as a live event on New Bond Street in London. I'll be right back after I grab a quick drink of water. We're looking at Bonhams Fine Watches auction coming up tomorrow in London at lot 37. This is a transitional Explorer 2 with the cream or panna rail dial that has been actually consigned, apparently, to Bonhams London by its original owner. Some bullshit going on in downtown LA again. Choppers flying around. Um, Jesus, terrifying stuff all the time. Lot 37, Rolex Explorer 2, reference 16550. This is called the rail dial as well because of the particular way in which the two words of the two phrases roughly align. Superlative chronometer officially certified, where you have this kind of gap that is roughly aligned between them on top of each other. And the dial, once again, due to minor defects in the lacquer that was used, has turned colors into a shade of eggshell rather than the polar white, which is the intended color, which was, of course, achieved in 16570. This is one of those kind of cult collectible pieces that always trended at some absurd price point and with a significant premium before the era of hype watches really arrived. But in either case, I think it's still, in a way, quite interesting as a collectible if you are into these oddballs from Rolex's back catalog, Rolex's archives, so to speak. The piece arrives with a Rolex box, service pouch, outer packaging as product literature, as well as an international service guarantee, the service papers from late January of this year. So that is pretty interesting. Again, Bonhams says that they're offering it on behalf of the original owner at lot number 37. And the piece is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere between 10,000 to 15,000 pounds sterling. What US dollars? If you would like me to take a look at any of the lots more closely, feel free to send in the numbers. I appreciate your presence and support. Please hit the like button. That is always helpful. We have a current Rolex at lot 39, a piece that was bought just this year, the Explorer 36, the reference number that returned it to its classic proportions that have been set in stone from quite early on and certainly solidified with the recognizable reference 1016. At lot number 39, of course, what we have is a reference 124270, purchased on January 26th, 2023. Arrives, of course, as a full set to this auction with a pre-auction estimate of 5,000 to 7,000 pounds sterling. Looks very lightly worn, and it is an interesting proposition indeed, but it is a watch that you can find elsewhere on the secondary market as well. Lot 40 is kind of the genre of sporty Calatrava that Patek seems to rely pretty heavily on in recent time. This is a piece that is already a decade old. Reference 6000G. Sorry, this is from 2017. I'm sorry. Reference 6006G. One of Patek's experiments in creating a Calatrava with a modern look, with a sporty appearance. A pointer date across the perimeter of the dial, off-center, small seconds at around 4 o'clock, and a relatively compact and quite slim appearance thanks to the 39 millimeter case and a micro rotor caliber based on the 240. This is lot number 40 for a 6006G Patek Philippe Calatrava in 18 karat white gold from around 2017. The piece has a pre-auction estimate of 12,000 to 18,000 pounds accompanying it. At lot 46, we are looking at another Patek Philippe world timepiece, namely the 5131G in 39 millimeters. The piece is in white gold and has a cloisonné dial with a depiction of the globe, the Americas. So you get Europe, Asia, Oceania, as well as Africa in cloisonné enamel at the center of the dial. Cloisonné enamel is an artisanal technique of miniature painting that uses thin gold threads, some of them thinner than a thread of hair, to trace the outlines of the drawing, and then uses enamel powder for the colors through a process that usually involves a number of rounds in of firing in the oven. The hour hand is in the observatory style to make sure that it doesn't impede much with your view of that micro painting. And the model is early enough that you still have Hong Kong rather than Beijing on the city's ring. And again, one of my favorite things about the world timepieces, of course, is the fact that they are built on the micro rotor caliber 240. And in this case, in fact, it is a model that still carries the hallmark of Geneva. This is the 5131G, 39 millimeters in 18 karat white gold with a Clausenet enamel micro painting at the center of the dial. This is the Patek Philippe World Time at lot number 46. The piece has an estimated value of 60,000 to 80,000 pounds sterling. Corrado Galizia, 499. Thank you so much. Lot 97. How about the Sodalite dial Daytona? Interesting dial. Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it. It's a very handsome piece. I like how it matches with the white gold case. Honestly, I think I like it better than lapis lazuli, to be honest, because lapis also has similar patterns, but a lot of times the flakes within the texture of the stone dial are a little more colorful. In lapis, sometimes even have a certain yellowish, even golden hue. I like how neutral this is in a way. It just registers as shades of blue, even though, of course, it's charcoal or even black in certain spots. Another thing I like is actually the fact that they went with Arabic numerals for the minutes or seconds, whichever you want to say. But I guess for a chronograph, you would probably want to say it is seconds. Because you remember in some meteorite dial versions, my complaint has always been it looks like a very sporty watch, very interesting dial. Why use applied Roman numerals? I think in this case, a blue semi-precious stone dial goes really well with the white gold case. And contrary to many people, and certainly to the mainstream opinion, I'm actually a huge fan of these pieces that were offered on leather bands. This is kind of the pre-Oyster Flex presentation of the Daytona, of the precious metal Daytona models that don't come on a full Oyster bracelets. This model is 116519, purchased apparently in December of 2008, obviously running on caliber 4130, the in-house self-winding integrated chronograph movement. I actually like that fixed end link design, and I think it gives you a nice break to your eyes, let's say, between the navy alligator strap and the blue dial that is actually sodalite. That particular piece apparently arrives with its original papers and box, serviced at Rolex in 2021. So those service papers are included, as well as not to mention the service pouch, products, literature, and hang tags. Yeah, honestly, I like it. I really like lapis lazuli in dressier watches, but this to me looks like a very beautiful precious metal sports watch. You know, enough flair without going overboard. I know some people have very strong feelings against gem setting on sports watches. So if you don't want to break into that territory, getting one of these Daytonas with unique dials is one way to go about it. And I know, again, the Daytona Beach series from early 2000s is also kind of um, a strong design aesthetic for many, even though I'm a huge fan of the Chrysoprase, especially the green dial version. But this comes very close to that in terms of my taste, at least. Mm, yes, 16518 is great value as well. That will be, of course, the gold on leather bracelet. 16519 has to be one of my absolute favorites. But you guys already know that I'm a big fan of the Zenith generation of the Daytona. It just, I don't know, it looks much more balanced to my eyes. This is lot 97. Thank you again, Corrado, for bringing it up. This is a piece from around 2008 with a recent service in 2021 by Rolex in 18 karat white gold with the semi-precious stone dial, with the sodalite dial, Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 116519. The piece is expected to fetch a final hammer price somewhere in the range between 35,000 to 45,000 pounds sterling. Again, if you would like to direct my attention to any specific lots, feel free to send in the lot number, just like Corrado did. Thank you once again. And Basil, I wholeheartedly agree. I think blue dials look quite stunning on the Daytonas. It's not a coincidence that one of my favorites that was just discontinued was the 116509, one of the two precious metal Daytonas that John Mayer showed in that infamous Talking Watches episode in his own second installment. The 116508, of course, took over and became enshrined as the John Mayer 18 karat yellow gold with the sunburst green dial, red accents, whereas 116509, which is the 18 karat white gold on the full bracelet with the sunburst blue dial, which also happens to have red accents, seems to still present an interesting value proposition when it comes to the most recent generation of Daytonas that have been discontinued with the Watches and Wonders 2023. A very interesting AP rectangular piece with hooded lugs at lot 50. We're looking at reference 15091 BA, as in yellow gold, right from around the turn of the last century, from around the turn of the millennium, with oversized Arabic numerals at 12 and 2, broadsword hands, and with generous amounts of lume on the dial, including those oversized Arabic numerals. The piece has quite a presence on the wrist, especially for its size, which is 24 by 38 millimeters. It does come with box and outer packaging, as well as a blank booklets of its certificate of origin and warranty, as well as some product literature. This is a model that is called the canapé, an interesting design. It is named after the French word for the sofa. I guess the piece kind of does look like a sofa with the hooded lugs, giving the appearance of armrests. And because the lugs are movable, the piece also has quite a modular fit on the wrist. Very interesting design. Obviously, not the kind of AP watch that you're necessarily used to seeing. This is lot 50 for an Audemars Piguet canapé 15091 BA from around the turn of the millennium. The piece has a pre-auction estimate of $7,000 to $9,000 US dollars. I'm saying 7,000 to 9,000 pounds sterling. My apologies. We're looking at tomorrow's Fine Watches auction at Bonhams London on New Bond Street. Lot 51 is, for some, a contradiction in terms. For me, one of my favorites. genres of Patek Philippe watches. In early 2000s, you had the references 5107 and 5127. Um, these beautiful Calatravas, very classically designed, with the addition of the crown guards, which I really love. Obus shaped applied indices, dotted track for the minutes and seconds, sweep center seconds, and a framed window for the date indicator at 3 o'clock as well. A beautiful piece. My favorite of those two reference numbers has to be the 5127G in white gold. I think this watch really comes into its own and has this kind of dynamic and even sporty appearance for a Calatrava. That's fucked up. Can you guys hear me now? Jesus. Thank you, Corrado and Fries. Yeah, well, I'm not going to go through every single thing now, but I was saying that it's always a tricky proposition to try to acquire day dates and date justs with unique dials from auctions, especially when they come from this period. It's much better to choose, to source rather, the best condition Rolex day date that you can find, whether we're talking about an 1803 like this, 18038, or 18238. The first one being single quick set for the dates, the second one being double quick set for both the day and the dates. You should just get whatever is your preference in the best condition possible. And if you're really dying to get um, a Stella dial or a wooden dial or a semi-precious stone dial that really strikes your fancy for that particular day date watch, I would highly recommend that you go out and source that separately, because the kind of premiums that are tagged onto these kinds of rare dials is just incredibly ridiculous. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for fixing it. And John, good evening to you as well. So there we go. This is an 1803 Rolex day dates with its presidential bracelets from around 1977 at lot 52, with pre-auction estimates that ranges between 35,000 to 65,000 pounds sterling. I hope you see what I mean with that. It's really unreasonable the way these things are priced, estimated, valued at auctions. Lot 53 is a reduced size Royal Oak. This is reference 4100 BA, a model that was designed by Jacqueline Dimier, which not only shrunk down the dimensions of Janta's original design, but it also basically changed ever so slightly its proportions as well, dispensing with the JLC 920 as the caliber base. You can almost immediately observe that with the addition of a sweep center seconds hand as well. This particular piece is rendered in 18 karat yellow gold, case and integrated bracelet and all, and has a petite tapisserie dial in that traditional Bleu Nuit Nuage 50 color. I think it's still a beautiful piece and certainly rather substantial in 18 karat yellow gold as well, from around 1980s. This piece is expected to fetch an amount somewhere in the range between 20,000 to 30,000 in pounds sterling. There's an interesting 30 dial full gold Rolex Submariner at lot 54. Serti in French, of course, simply means gem set or jeweled, but in the Rolex parlance, it refers to these dials that usually match the tones of the case for their own color, whether that is champagne or silvered. In this case, it is champagne, and they have a triangular cut sapphire at 12 o'clock, baguette cut sapphires at 6 and 9 o'clock, and brilliant cuts diamonds for the rest of the indices. In this case, you are looking at Rolex Submariner in 18 karat yellow gold from the 5-digit era. This is 16618. A lot of times, these full gold versions are also called the Sultan. This particular piece comes with its box and papers, also product literature, hang tags, an extra spare link, a matching Rolex anchor, as well as a calendar card from 1998 and 1999 is included. This piece having been purchased on December 28th of 1998. You can see that anchor on the back in the presentation box. And here's a shot of the piece on the wrist. We're looking at tomorrow's Fine Watches auction at Bonhams London. This is going to be a live event that will start at 2 p.m. local time on New Bond Street. This is lot number 54, a Rolex Submariner in 18 karat yellow gold with a 30 dial, reference 16618, the so-called Sultan from late 1998. The piece has a pre-auction estimate that ranges from 20,000 to 30,000 pounds sterling. We're looking at one of the interesting Calatravas from the 90s. These were all the rage at that time, apparently. I was too young to catch up, but this is the 3919J. In so many ways, it reflects a lot of the elements that have become signature aspects of not only the Calatrava line, but also of Patek. The hobnail decoration, the Claude Paris decoration on the bezel is one such aspect. Such decoration is used nowadays by Patek in different aspects of case decoration, including the case band. You have a beautiful enamel dial that has painted Roman numerals and these are complemented by a small seconds subsidiary dial at 6 o'clock and leaf shaped hands for the hour and minutes. Here's a shot of it on the wrist. The piece apparently comes with a service invoice from 2014, as well as an insurance valuation. Box and outer packaging is included as well. These particular pieces are notoriously dime-sized, 32 millimeters, but can most certainly serve as very fine men's dress watches by most standards. This is lot 56 for a hand-wound 18 karat yellow gold Patek Philippe Calatrava 3919J. The piece is expected to realize a final hammer price between 7,000 to 9,000 pounds sterling. Lot 60 is a 6-digit Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. You're looking at the 116520. Perhaps a little less popular on the mainstream than the black dial version of this particular reference number. Pardon me. Some people don't like the silver outer rings for the chronograph registers, which I think echo the matching stainless steel bezel for the tachymeter quite nicely. But perhaps there's not enough contrast on the face of the watch, which might make this particular piece a little less desirable compared to its black counterpart. Of course, the 116520 introduced the in-house movement, caliber 4130. And this particular example at lot 60 is expected to fetch an amount somewhere in the range between 12,000 to 18,000 pounds sterling. Hey, thank you, Mr. Tudor. To you, I appreciate you. Maybe now that I have a little more viewers, I'll be very quick. I will show it again. It's not every day that it happens. I wish I was actually identified in it, but that's okay. On Tony tagged me on the versions of it that he posted on Instagram, so it will lead some traffic onto my platforms, which is just great. So once again, big W for the wrist shot. Which features, of course, also the 8-day power reserve and wound caliber. That is the caliber 875, which was derived from the Septantième, the 70th anniversary model. So big W for the wrist shots. big L for male pattern baldness. But at least I am wearing a very beautiful sports jacket, so I can rest easy. But yes, thank you for the kind words, Mr. Tudor, to you. Can I just call you Tudor? Are you Mr. Tudor to me as well? Mr. Tudor? All right. Lot 63, we're looking at a watch that celebrates in 2023 its 30th anniversary, the original Royal Oak Offshore, the Beast, reference 25721. Stainless steel with the rubber details that are featured on not only the chronograph pushers and the crown, but also all in the form of the exposed bezel gasket as well. Royal Oak Offshore was introduced in 1993 as a sportier, larger iteration of the original Gérard Janta design. It was designed by Emmanuel Guet, who was Jacqueline Dimier's protege, actually, in the design department of AP at the time. This particular piece comes from around year 2000 and is merely naked. No box or papers. Of course, it's original at the point of its introduction, 42, 44 almost by some measurements, including the crown. This was quite a big watch, hence nicknamed the Beast. It was also substantively thicker than the Royal Oak Jumbo, from which it was derived and to which it was compared. So it was quite a shock when it was introduced, because of course the original Royal Oak Jumbo 5402 is about 7 millimeters, a little more than 7 millimeters thick, whereas the Offshore, which is of course a chronograph and not simply a time and date watch, is not only 42 plus millimeters in diameter, it is also twice as thick at 15 millimeters. And you can, of course, get a glimpse of that by the depth that is given to that dial by the chapter ring, which of course has the tachymeter on it. Yeah, Ali.
I heard this is where you come if you want to become famous on Hodinkee.
I still love you, Ali. I haven't gotten a big head yet.
Yeah, there we go. Unlike some other people.
I don't know who. Oh, thank you, Mr. Tudor. Who has gotten a big head because they were featured on Hodinkee? Name the names. Name the names. Don't just sneak this.
You know what? I honestly can't say. I honestly can't say that I know anybody who feels like they got a big head from being on Hodinkee. However, I did see like fairly recently. I think it was Watch Anissa or Watch Pro or something. Did like a equivalent of a 30 under 30,
Right.
and I have a bias, obviously, but I was absolutely flabbergasted by some of their choices because Marco didn't appear, and some of the choices were like people who made T-shirts of watches or whatever. And I'm like,
Right.
so I was like, okay. But I actually happen to know one person on that list who's not related to like Watch YouTube, and they definitely got a big head about it. Like they put it on their LinkedIn profile, and I don't want to get any further into it than that. But I'm like, okay. So
I mean, look, I think you have a fair point there. I think for a list like that, I hope Marco was at least on the short list. I'm far from my 30s at this point, much closer to 40s than that. So I would not expect to be on such a list. But in whatever industry, a lot of it is politics. If
yeah.
Anyway, so it's not just by merit, and it's not just because you are, you know, you're a certain kind of person that you end up appearing here. Sometimes it's coincidence. A lot of times it's about the connections. Um, it is what it is. But yeah, man. I mean, St. Peter, 4.99. Shout out to YB on the big dicky. Yeah, I wish again. I wish I were linked on it. Um, it would have driven a little more traffic to the website. But I'm happy, man. Everyone's ego needs stroking once every so often. So I like that.
I think that. I mean, I've said it before. I think I'd like to see you get a wider audience. I think you deserve a wider audience for the sheer topics at hand. They really should link. Did they get your permission to use your photo?
Oh yeah, yeah. Of course, of
Okay,
course. But
so
I didn't.
it wasn't like blanket permission for the event.
No, no. They're always nice enough people who take these kinds of photos. I mean, for the most part, anyways, I was up until that event. I was just hanging out with Charlie a lot, anyways, who was taking the photos. And for that event, of course, since it was kind of a big brand, big launch, Hodinkee was actually there, with Tony Traina, um, who is actually, I think, based in Chicago, but he had flown in for the event. So he asked whether he could take the shots, inside and out, both the dial and the movement, and I was happy to give him permission. Yeah, and again, as I said, I would rather. I wish my head wasn't tilted that far down to expose my bald patch for that particular photo, but it's all right. I'm fine. I will live. But again, yeah, he was nice enough to link my Instagram profile when he posted some of those pics as stories on Instagram. So a little bit of traffic goes a long way. Whether I deserve a bigger audience or not, time will tell. I don't think anyone deserves anything in this world, but it will happen at a certain point. I'll make
Well,
sure.
no, I will. Okay, fine. I'll add the caveat. You have earned the right to deserve a bigger audience. You semantic bad businessman. Fuck. Like, just take a compliment and shave once in a while.
What do you mean?
No, I'm just
I,
I
I,
randomly
sh-
threw.
I shaved just yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. We're cursed with that blood. I look like the Santa Claus. I shave and I turn into. So anyway, I did want to come say hello and congratulate you. I will not derail you any further. I am going to listen to the show for at least for a little while.
No, but now that you said this is a great opportunity for me. I love doing, when I'm on my autistic streak, I'm great doing what I do, but I always prefer having an interlocutor. So you are not interrupting anything, you are enriching the discussion. And that's the case with 90% of the people who jump on the panel at any rates. I love you, at a different level, but whoever joins on the panel is always welcome. Maybe I will be awkward for 5 minutes, but then we'll figure out what we are doing. Were you thinking of any interesting pieces or any other watch news?
So somebody posted in one of the WhatsApp groups a Raymond wow, right? And so I dove into them a little bit. And as far as I can tell, and actually you may have a definitive answer because I get a lot of different answers on this. First of all, I just can't justify the price point of the ones they posted. They were all like 2,500 retail, right? But my understanding was that they used all ETA movements, or they licensed the rights to manufacture ETA like movement, but they weren't in-house movements.
Okay.
I get caught in these. First of all, I have no problem with ETA movements. I have no problem with Salida movements. They're workhorses, right? I have a problem with watches that are priced above, say, $1,000 that use those movements and don't bring like some either an intense module like Reservoir does for their retrogrades, or some artistry to it.
Right. So what happened with the Raymond Weil?
So it uses an RW4000 movement, which they keep saying is in-house, and I can't validate that. As far as I can tell, they manufactured it in-house, but they didn't design it. So I think it's a Salida movement or an ETA movement, just licensed. And I thought maybe you would know it since you asked. That's the only thing that's been on my mind that's new.
I think it's just a spruced up ETA 2824 too. But once again, I think, look, there are a few brands, well, not a few brands, but there are certain brands that we let get away with this kind of thing. Like IWC and Breitling, for example, have a lot of movements in their watches that they name certain ways and therefore branded as a manufacturer movement. But ultimately, when you look at IWC's Pilot's Chronos, for example, the 41 millimeter versions, those still run basically on a version of the 7750. They can call it whatever IWC manufacturer caliber they want. If you flip the watch over, that's still the architecture of Vajra 7750. But then again, whenever people talk about Habring 2, they will bring up like, that it uses some modification of the Vajra 7750, even though it turns that into something completely different, from hand-wound chronographs to deadbeat seconds to whatever else. Same thing with Breitling, the new colorful Super Oceans. Those use a version of the ETA 2824-A2, but I think it's branded. Let's see what they branded as. What is it? 17, B17. But that's just an ETA movement. And it doesn't change much if they add their own rotor or something on it. So I don't know. Like you said, it's about the price point for me. If you're selling an ETA movement watch to me for $5,000, I don't think that's fair. But with the way that the prices have risen, I think, up to 1,500, I won't really raise a stink about it. But I want to welcome Archie in the meantime. Hey, Archie, how are you doing?
I just want to say hello, and a very quick hello to Ali. How are you, Ali?
Hello.
It's great to see you here. Hey, I just want to say congratulations. I like the photo bomb at the Hodinkee event.
Thank you. Well, it's a JLC event
JLC
actually,
event.
but I was
Mm.
happy to be noted, and I was wearing, I
The
was wearing a
Reverso Grand Date.
Archer Luxury signature model.
Mm. Hey, I just want to say to you quickly there. I just want to say to you, you know, I with my own collection there from the robbery and that there, I've actually built a little bit of a collection, and I got a Reverso Grand Date that was offered to me, and I went to Singapore and I actually bought an alligator strap for it.
Okay, so are you
Now,
getting?
before I went overseas, it stopped working. I wound it up and it wasn't ticking. Now I want to tell you this story. So I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna have to I know I gotta have to service it. Guess what? I put this new strap on. It started going again.
Okay.
Maybe it didn't like the non JLC strap, but I've got a really nice dark blue strap on it, and
Very cool.
so I'm very, very happy. But I just wanted to say that is absolutely amazing. Hey, if ever you want to come on my stream, I'd love to. I know we had a bit of a, look, many things were said and done. I want to help you. I love your watch content. You talk good stuff. Is anything I can do to help you? I want to do it for you because you're a good guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, as long as you don't bring me on to shit on me and call me boring and sell me down the river when someone with
Sure.
more subscribers comes up at a certain point.
I've never sold you down the river.
Yes, you
we've
did.
had
Oh yes, you did.
we've had
Oh yes, you did. You sold me out to Tim Wright, and did it in such a nasty and ungrateful way that I did not appreciate that. I don't think
I
I will
understand.
forgive that. But
I understand.
yeah.
I understand. I
I
just want to say to
appreciate
you,
that you're coming
man,
here in
I just
goodwill
want to say that was
or
I
good faith.
actually highlighted you on the Hodinkee article. I did actually do some research. Don't tell Archie this, but we do actually do some research, and I spotted that, and I very subtly brought it up, and I said, "Hey, we all knew." We said, "There's Lord,
Thank
and
you.
we gave you your attention that you rightly deserved. Very well dressed man, very well done. And I just want to say, hey, I don't want to say anything negative about anything. I just want to say, man, I love you. I want to give you peace. I want to give you some kudos.
Thank you.
So that's all I wanted to do was say that to you. And I just want to say too, don't be too scared with the Valjoux movements. I had that IWC 3227. It
Yeah.
actually had the in-house movement, but they actually designed the base plate. They were so impressed. IWC was so impressed with the 7750, even though it's a non-chronograph. They designed the base plate to basically interchange with an 7750. So they actually quite like that movement. It's not just a cheap movement. That's actually a very quite well regarded, and they've also done a lot of work on finishing it and doing things with it. The problem is in this watch industry is that what was acceptable before kind of changed so quickly, and some of these makers couldn't get their own in-house stuff. I mean, Patek used to use Novell movement on their high-end complications. They were Novell
Lemania.
Lemania. So they used to use JLC movements. There's so many things there, but I like your work. I just want to come on and say hello to you, Ali. Ali, I'm sorry for interrupting you, man.
No worries.
You are a cool soul. You know that? I just want to say that to you, man. You're a cool soul, and I always love chatting to you. You know that? I just wanted to say that. I'll let you guys go. I just wanted to say, well done. That's a very cool thing. That's super fucking cool.
Thank you.
And
Arch.
you don't have to dye your fucking hair pink,
Let's leave that elsewhere.
I just
right?
might. I like that stuff actually. That's about one thing that he gets right, I think. It's good to be recognizable. You see, I mean, if I weren't dressed a certain way, I don't think you would be able to tell me apart from other other people.
No, we'd always recognize you.
Archie,
Okay.
wrist check.
Yes.
Wrist check.
Oh,
before you
I'm
go.
actually wearing Explorer 2. Explorer 2. Explorer 2, 42 mil. This was the
Very
one,
cool.
the only one that survived.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Guys, I love you. I got to shoot off. I just want to say well done. And Ali, thank you so much for coming in. I'm just listening to this in the background. Great conversation. I love it, man. I love it. Don't be too hard on the 7750. Okay.
No, I'll follow up now that you said it.
Okay. Thank you, guys. See you later. Love you.
Take care. Great visit from Archie Luxury. I appreciate you, Archie. I don't think I'll be back on the show, with all due respect, but thank you for your gracious presence and kind words. When it comes to, the use of generic movements, I think the problem boils down to transparency and value. As long as the brands don't necessarily feel like they need to worship at the altar of vertical integration and in-house movements, and use all these marketing ploys to paper over what is actually going on, just because there are certain trends in the industry these days, I don't think there's a problem. In fact, when you have a time-only watch that has an ETA or Celita-based movement, or when you have a self-winding chronograph that is built on the Vajra 7750 or Vajra ETA, it's boils down to the same thing. It means that you have something that is easily serviceable by any respectable watchmaker. That's a great thing. And like Archie said, there are so many different manufacturers that use the Vajra 7750 as a base to make different sorts of movements. I was talking about Hodinkee 2 earlier, how they basically built their in-house Felix calibers, even the non-chronograph ones, on the base of Vajra 7750. Naoya Hida, for example, the Japanese independent maker that makes these old school kind of vintage aesthetic dress watches that have proven really popular. They make basically time-only pieces with obviously the small seconds at 9 o'clock on the modified base of a Vajra 7750. So there are possibilities, but transparency is important and valuation is important as well. In my case, for example, Naoya Hida doesn't pass that muster because it's so damn expensive. As classy and as beautiful looking as their models are, whereas Hodinkee 2, I think, in terms of their offerings, whether you're looking for a chronograph or for a time-only piece or time and date piece, they offer some great options.
Yeah, I think, I totally agree with you. I think that when I see an NH35 or a Miyota 9015, any of the other Celitas, and I just see people say they're using them, or of course the Valjus. I appreciate that, especially if they go a step further and they say exactly what grade, right? Because as you all know, you can buy at a movements, little movements, Valju movements, at different grades. No problem with that. And I say those are workhorses, and I have a couple of them at this point in my daughter's collection, but I have a couple of them, and they're workhorses. They're fantastic. It's when they're not transparent, they relabel them and they don't discuss what they've done, right? So a couple brands discuss what they've done. Again, Reservoir, aforementioned, right? They add modules to make them a retrograde and stuff. They charge handsomely for it, right? I'm not confident that it's a great value, but it is unique, at least in that regard. But then there's other brands that charge handsomely for like, they say they're Inca block, which isn't their Inca block, right? It's not unique to them. Those type of things are problematic. But anytime somebody tells me they're going to get a watch with like an NH35 movement, and it's their first automatic, or just expanding their collection, it's $500, $700. I'm like, that's a tremendous value for that. It will be super easy to service, right? But then when I see the same thing at $5,000, yeah, right, because I don't care about the bejeweling of it, right, the bedazzling of it nearly as much. Like, that's a piece of jewelry then at that point. It's a fashion statement. It's not a watch anymore. If that's what you want, fair enough, but it's not a watch anymore.
I think once again, jumping off something that Archie was saying, but also adding a point to accentuate different aspects of value. Not everything has to be in-house, built from scratch, right? A lot of the legendary watches were actually made on outsourced calibers that have proven so reliable for one reason or another. The reason that Lemania CH27 was so popular was because of its compact dimensions. So it gave us not only the Omega 321, which went to the moon, but also generations of Patek Philippe perpetual calendar chronographs, solo chronographs, Daniel Roth chronographs, Roger Dubuis chronographs, all of these, Audemars Piguet, tourbillon chronographs, so on and so forth. JLC 920, at its inception, the thinnest self-winding movement in the world, ran all the iconic luxury sports watches in their first generation. In fact, the Royal Oak Jumbo for 49 years back to back. And again, the idea is that not everything that is at that level, at that high grade, at that high level of horology has to be in-house. It boils down to a marketing shtick sometimes. That being said, at even that entry level, you can produce some great value just by modifying a standard ETA movement. At the end of the day, Swatch's Powermatic 80 is just a modified ETA 2824 with a reduced beat rate, so it has 80-hour power reserve. So, that's their secret weapon, basically. They have so many great watches with the Powermatic 80 under $1,000 across the Swatch group, not only in Tissot, but also at Hamilton and many others. So,
and Lemania, man, Lemania is legendary. I think the first two chrono movements that I spent actual time like investigating were the CH13 and the CH15. And the 15, if I remember correctly, inspired some of the design cues of the 321, right? So much good stuff came out of Lemania.
Yeah, CHD 15 is the monopusher version.
So much good stuff came out of Lemania. Yeah. So what actually, I actually don't know if I don't know if I know what happened to them. I mean, obviously they had relationships with Audemars Piguet and Omega and a bunch of other people. Were they like a critical success and then they just died in the quartz crisis and were acquired over and over again? I don't actually think I know what happened to them.
It's pretty, with Lemania, it's somewhat straightforward. What happened was they pretty reliably existed throughout the quartz crisis. Not to say that they haven't been affected by it. They played an integral part in the revival of Breguet, for example. Daniel Roth was collaborating very closely with Lemania, sourcing from them all sorts of movements, including the base of the chronographs. Um, what else? The wristwatch tourbillon that he started designing for Breguet, and that was introduced after he had to leave since the Chomet brothers had gone down. Ultimately, what happened was the Bahraini investment company Investcorp that acquired Breguet was wise enough to acquire Nouvelle Lemania, New Lemania as well. So they integrated both, and today Breguet watches are actually produced in the manufacture of Nouvelle Lemania. So Lemania has become Breguet manufacturer in the same way Frédéric Piguet has become Blancpain manufacturer.
So, and I'm throwing this one out there because, I mean, when I'm thinking about it, how many places Lemania appeared, from Vacheron, Patek, Audemars, obviously. Why is it that JLC got the reputation of the watchmaker's watchmaker instead of, say, Lemania? Is it just? I mean, is it just because they also made watches, which Lemania never did? I think, because Lemania appeared in everybody.
I have a Lemania chronograph in my collection that would disprove.
That's
that.
right. You posted a picture of that.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that. But they obviously Breguet and then Roger Dubois. They everybody. They want everybody's bloody watch.
So, of course, we have to understand that some of these monikers, phrases, headings are things that collectors throw around, and some of them stick, some of them don't, right? The Holy Trinity, for example, as this grouping of three elite high horology Swiss manufacturers was something that was made up in internet forums. A lot of the nicknames we have for watches are made by Italian collectors, English collectors, and others, and some of them stick, some of them don't. You have watches named after Raquel Welch, after Jean-Claude Killy. You have watches that are named after Steve McQueen that he didn't even wear.
We just talked about that last night.
Just because he was cool. And then you have one of the most iconic actors of all time, and I'm perhaps a little biased, who wore a GMT Master, which was very distinctly recognizable in Apocalypse Now. And no one calls a GMT Master a Marlon Brando, So you never know why these nicknames quite stick. But I think here's probably the kicker. JLC did always make its watches, and that was an integral part of their business. They innovated for themselves too, even though for good stretches of their existence, they were perhaps more dedicated in making movements for others. And ultimately, I think the fact that they were partly owned by Audemars Piguet until they were acquired by Richemont, and did a lot of work for them, and continued to provide them with Caliber 2021 even after they split, I think has something to do with that. I think it's about that close relationship without being completely absorbed. Whereas Lemania, along with Tissot, was basically a coalition with Omega. Um, and I don't think they, even though they produced their watches, I don't think they were ever um, independent or autonomous in the way that JLC was for the most part, even though it has been owned partially or wholly by larger groups.
All right, fair enough. I'm just thinking Lemania got gypped out of maybe a moniker or two, but I'm pretty happy with JLC being called the Watchmaker's Watchmaker anyway. I like JLC.
Sure, but I think it has, like, I mean, you have instinctively said it, and I think that contains a grain of truth. Lemania, even though they have made very interesting watches in the past, including these beautiful monopusher chronographs that they supplied to the British Ministry of Defense. Again, one of the field watches that form part of the Dirty Dozen. They were one of the 12 manufacturers that supplied watches to the British Ministry of Defense during World War II. And they have made some other watches in, during their existence, but I can't say they have their unique catalog in the way that Jaeger-LeCoultre has their unique catalog. And I think that's why perhaps JLC gets more recognition, because they have their distinct style in addition to a very long-standing
Yeah. No, it's fair. It's
relationship.
fair. I was just thinking about that briefly. I did post another watch that caught my eye in the private chat, and I just think this is a disaster.
Is this
The
it?
Diastar is a disaster.
What is this? Please say a few things about this. I was about to take a break as well, and maybe you can help. What is this?
So, I mean, the Diastar is Rado's, I think, only great hit historically, right? It also happens to be my first watch that was gifted to me, and I think my gateway into the hobby was a Diastar 6364 from my uncle with diamond indices. So this is their latest Diastar. It is obviously a skeletonized Diastar. I think that the Diastar's been struggling for quite some time. I'm not sure the form factor is modern enough for people. It reminds me very much of what you would expect to see in the peak of Fidel Castro's Cuba sort of thing. Like the style's just, I think it's very dated. And then they decided to update it with a skeleton. And I think, okay, well, everybody wants to come out with a skeleton. And then they also did this thing with the crystal. So the crystal is actually shaped with a bit of a grid, and you can barely see it in that picture. In some of the other shots that are available online, you can actually see the crystal shaped in that grid. I just think this is a disaster. I think this is not the way to modernize the Diastar. I think it's talking to such a small audience. It's just a huge mistake. Now, the pricing of the Diastars are, they're under $2,000, and I think this one is also like in the $2,000 or under $2,000 area. But I don't know. I just think it's a dated design, and I'm not sure where, because I think the Captain Cook's a perfectly reasonable design, although it's not incredibly popular. But at that price point, it's a good watch. I just don't know what Rado was doing with this. And we were talking about like the 222 yesterday, right? You update iconic designs, you bring them back. I would argue that Rado's only iconic design at any point, and it wouldn't be considered iconic today, is the Diastar. And I don't understand this take on it.
I actually kind of like the flying saucer kind of shape, this kind of oval shape. We were just looking at some of the selections from the collectibles. Jaeger-LeCoultre, they have the sportier versions of the Memovox that have a similar, like, you can call it oval, lemon, or whatever it looks like, egg, UFO. I like it, but one thing that I just can't bear is skeletonization for the sake of skeletonization. Um, and I feel like this is one of those instances. I don't even know what I'm looking at for the most
Yeah, I
part.
mean, I first of all, I don't mind an oval shape. I actually, AP obviously being my favorite mark, I really would like to see. And we talked about a millinery. You even linked me to a very nice millinery last night. So I don't mind the shape so much as it's not the. I don't think it's a good use. Again, this was a design that is extremely dated. I think if you're going to update the Diastar, just throwing a skeleton is not enough. You should go ahead and use more of the shape. You can maintain the shape, but use more of the shape. And then effectively, as far as I can tell, what they did was they skeletonized it. They threw a crystal which has some hard edges on the front, which I don't think highlights the skeletonization the way they intended whatsoever. I think it just looks funky. And then they still, instead of frosting the branding in, they made the branding like really loud, which AP recently did on some models, and I don't like that either. This just feels like a miss all the way around. I'm not sure why they did it.
I don't know. I look, maybe, from another perspective, I'm also trying to understand. I used to be a stickler about, like, why do we have to have exhibition case backs in every single watch? Most movements don't really, quote unquote, deserve that sort of exhibition. But there's a sense that a lot of people who are newcomers into the hobby are very easily taken in by these sorts of displays. And I think a skeletonized or open work dial in the same way serves a similar purpose. Now, it can border on a gimmick, but if it excites someone, I don't want to hate too much on it. I just don't quite get it. I would rather, the movement also seems flipped to my taste, right? I would rather get a more clear view of the mainspring barrel, because that gives me a sense of a power reserve in a way, rather than the balance wheel up there up top, which I think was intentional. I guess they want to show the balance wheel around 12 o'clock, so you get kind of a sense of dynamism on the dial of the watch. I don't know. I mean, I can't muster a strong feeling here, to be honest. Not even hate.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I can muster hate. I think so. To your first comment, I think that obviously what a Newton's cradle is, right? So people love those type of things because most people aren't exposed to those. So I think that having even a dirty, grimy, basic NH35 movement with an open case back captures people because it's just something they don't see much of. The same way Newton's cradle captures people's, fascination on desks, right? Just swinging balls. But I think the way that they tried to execute this, so they tried to highlight effectively in quadrants by shaping the crystal. I don't think that was a good way to highlight it. And then they obstructed it. I think it actually obstructs it further, and then they obstructed it further by two massive pieces of branding, which I think are just executed poorly. And my affinity for the watch, again, is that, it was my first automatic watch. It was gifted to me by my uncle. I still have it. And yeah, so I always am kind of hoping for that reason, Rado makes some sort of interesting comeback. I don't think that Captain Cook's enough, and I don't think that, what they've been doing recently is particularly stellar. So I was disappointed in this release. But I don't hate it per se. But this is the only other thing other than, you had asked, like, what has caught my eyes? I mean, since we spoke last night, like, nothing else has really caught my eyes. Other than I'm on Chrono 24 constantly looking for a reason to spend money.
Well, what is the reason? What are you looking at particularly?
I'm basically looking to fill my third slot in my 3 in the G right now, replace the Vermonts that I have. Not replace them, I'll keep them because they're both limited collectibles and they mean something to me, but they're, kind of going to retirement. While I'm waiting for, 2 other watches to be made that will go into the rotation. And one of the waits is going to be at least 2 years. So it's a long wait. So I want to get something that I'm not overspending on, that I can, recover some of my money on, that still speaks to me. And I'm having a hard time with that right now. I'm flip-flopping a lot between, vintage Rolex, which probably wouldn't fit me well, but it would, I think, make me feel good, to some pretty high horology, or just doing something stupid and just grabbing a Grubel on the secondary, which I can. But then that more or less takes a permanent spot. So, yeah, typical indecisiveness, I think.
So wait, the options are really that separate from each other, Global Force or vintage Rolex, or
that's the thing, is I'm
that
still
just a
going
spectrum?
It's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum of options. So, my current rotation is a 15500, which I intend to upgrade twice. Once will be, I think I'm going to end up getting a 15510 in a precious metal fairly soon. And then the open work, the 15407, is where I want to be, either in steel or in rose. I have the Carl Suhi, which I'm already actually considering of upgrading, because I really have fallen in love with the company as a whole, and it fills the dress watch, like the sporty dress watch role, as opposed to the dressy sports watch role, right? So it fills that role nicely, and I've kind of solved the leather strap problem for myself, because I just put a little bit of beard balm. I don't know if we spoke about that, but that's how it kind of solves the leather strap problem for me, right?
Right.
Then right now, I have a pure diver, right? Like a beater, for lack of a better term, which is either the Bremont Project Possible or the Alt One World Timer C17 edition, right? And I've had a couple of problems with the Bremonts. So I'm looking to kind of retire those into, just non-service, and fill that slot for the time being in the 3 and a G. So it's a spectrum. I would like a diver, but there's just so many unique watches out there that maybe I just skip the diver, because I don't actually ever, when I want to get in a pool or when I go to the beach, I throw in a G-Shock every time. Doesn't matter, right? I think in the past 5 years, I think the only other watch I've actually taken to the beach in the water was a Grand Seiko, the Beast Below limited edition, the 60th anniversary model, right? So I'm not sure I see a need to get a real diver, right? So yeah, it's all over the place. The vintage Rolex is still called to me. Birth year Rolex comes in a, is an interesting option, and they do come up on Wind and Menta. Eric Wind kind of being my preference for the educational value he also provides, but I have nothing against Menta for sure. But then I'm thinking, at some point in the next few years, I'm going to get a Grubel, so maybe I should just pull the trigger now. I just can't see myself not getting a Grubel in the next 3 to 5 years anyway. So maybe we should just pull the trigger now. But then I don't know if when my watch that's on order comes in, I don't know what I would rotate out in that case. So it's just me being indecisive, and being very fortunate to be in a position where I can be indecisive about either a vintage Rolex or a Grubel Force or Roman Gauthier. Right? Yeah. It's like, I can't complain about the position. I'm just being indecisive.
And that watch that would be coming in the next couple of years is something that we talked about behind the scenes, I think, right?
Yeah. I think I said it on air. People know it's a
Okay.
Roman Gauthier, right? So, so yeah, that would be coming in, 2 years or less, hopefully.
Okay.
I didn't know, because I'm an idiot. So, excuse me. Let me get the mute before I cough again in your audience's ears. I didn't know that they were taking pre-orders for these, like, well before they were announced. Didn't know that. So I didn't reach out. I assumed that when they were announced, they would start taking pre-orders, because I'm a moron. So by the time I contacted them, I don't know, within a few hours of the announcement, and it was already a 2-year wait list, and people were taking delivery. So,
which one did you choose finally?
The Leather de Soleil, right? Salmon dial, rose gold dial. To me, this is a rose,
nice.
not a salmon. And I didn't know that this was even an option.
Very cool.
For pre-order, you and I had talked about this on air before they formally announced it, before they released the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
If I had known that, I probably would have put it in an order like 18 months ago. I just was a moron, so I missed the window. So now I've got to wait.
Yeah,
but I love this watch for so many different reasons.
Me too. I think, one thing that I really love before we get to the particular dial color is how it takes the concept of an integrated design to the next level, because you don't only have case and bracelet that is integrated, you also have an entire movement that is also executed in titanium. So inside and out, you have a titanium watch. Obviously, the dial is, gold, but you can live with that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's so beautifully executed. I like the minor asymmetries, the intentional asymmetries. I love that. I love the raised indices and numerals. I just can't think of anything about this watch I don't like. The only comment that people have said that I'm like, okay, that's a reasonable comment, is that they don't have a they don't have a way of throwing on the rubber straps, which they offer on the the limited editions and the platinums, right? So you're never going to be able to swap out of it, but I don't think I care. I love this, and I love a couple of their watches, but this one is the one that just is killing me. I almost sprung for a precious metal, their quote unquote platinum edition, because they can fully customize it, but I decided to go with that one.
I think, I'll put it this way. I think, again, sometimes certain things are never available, and suddenly, someone makes it available. In this case, it is, Vacheron Constantin's overseas third generation. Ever since they introduced the quick exchange system with their integrated bracelet sports watch, the minute that took off, people started expecting that as a standard issue option in every single watch that is remotely linked to the genre. I understand people have their preferences, but I don't see why one needs to nitpick about the same tired points about every single watch.
Yeah, I don't think it bothers me about this watch. I don't think it needed to be a quick release either.
No.
But it's just not available. And I don't, for this watch, I don't think it bothers me. Like, I could totally see, because right now I have two 15-500s. So I'm not selling either one right now. I just swap one out of my rotation, right? And I just stay at 3G. I could totally see myself getting a second Continuum, a fully custom one, the Platinum line, right? And just every few weeks, every few months, swapping it out in my rotation. I could totally see myself doing that. I haven't committed to that yet because my brain is still preparing for, leave money aside for the open work, especially open work compression metal, leave money aside for Grubel, and then not, don't do anything stupid in the meantime.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I like them both. Philippe Dufour's wife wears one of the Continuums in platinum from the Heritage collection. It's a beautiful watch. I really admire it. I like the fact that they have kind of different characters, even though obviously they follow the same design. This one has the movement executed in 18 karat white gold, for example. It has the rubber band, different dial options, Roman numerals, of course, instead of the Arabic. I don't know. I like them both. Like you said, you can potentially think of having both in a collection if you have that luxury. But it would be a tough decision. I guess, the first one to go for, I think rightly, is the titanium integrated, because that's just harder to find, especially in this kind of contrasting finishes of high polish and grain brushed. The only piece that comes close to this, again, a different genre, even though we force them into the same category, is that special edition Odysseus that they released in last year's Watches and Wonders. The
Yeah,
limited 200 piece, like the way it is finished as an integrated bracelet titanium watch. There are just not many of them. I know that Chapek released a titanium version of theirs, but that bracelet seems a little too one-dimensional, and I think doesn't do the beautiful watch and movement they have any justice.
Yeah, man, I can't. So in the meantime, I just got to try to fill that gap. But man, it's going to be a long wait. It's going to feel incredibly painful. I don't know. I probably will talk to you at some point before I pull the trigger and be like, okay, here are my final 3 options for the interim watch, and let young Brando make the call.
Well, I'm not sure if I can make the call for you, but I would be happy to, kind of help you pick between them. But yeah, this is a cool watch too. Don't take me wrong. I like the titanium version they have. I like that micro rotor caliber that they designed with those partially skeletonized bridges. But ultimately, I was kind of disappointed that they went for that kind of one-dimensional finish on the bracelet, which, once again shows you the league that Romain Gauthier is playing at compared to most of everyone else.
That's so pretty.
And this is a little too black for me, but still a very
Yeah, this
cool.
is the first one. I mean, I still look at it and say it's a nice watch, but this is the first one I can't see myself actually wearing. Also, my experience with any form of DLC has been bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best form of coating that I've had are on these bloody high-end G-Shocks, which just that coating, I don't even know what it is. It's goddamn wizard coating. But DLC-wise, I haven't had much luck.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about that in the earlier live stream on Monday yesterday. I think there's a certain charm to it, even when it wears and chips off. I guess it's the vintage watch head in me that learned tolerating even that. It took a while for me. It took me a while to see some of those beautiful examples of early Porsche design chronographs that had worn off a certain way. Karl Lagerfeld's personal Royal Oak, which he bought quite early on and had DLC coded himself. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have, especially when it was allegedly up for auction.
What do you mean, allegedly?
Well, I mean, they've never really been able to confirm it was Lagerfeld, right?
I mean, is as close as it gets in terms of, in terms of a photo of him wearing it, it being having been bought in 1975 in Milano, and I mean, again, Omega has been fooled in a similar scheme allegedly.
Yeah.
But this one was bought by AP for their museum at the end of the day, and I'm sure they looked into it in some way or fashion.
That's right. The AP did pick it up.
And the thing is, like, there are not many DLC coded Royal Oaks from that time period. Of course, it wasn't by the manufacturer, but it's basically the two identified Royal Oaks from that period that were DLC coded are Lagerfelds and what was the name of the Spanish king who abdicated?
Oh
Juan
God.
Carlos?
No. What's it, Don Carlos?
I think it's Juan Carlos, but he, yeah, the Spanish king who
Juan
abdicated,
Carlos. Okay.
he had a DLC coded Royal Oak as well, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, there are not many, so it's not. Um, yeah, it doesn't have a certificate of origin that is signed off to Karl Lagerfeld or something, but it's as close as it gets into.
But it is pretty. I mean, I
certain
agree with you. It
cultures.
is pretty.
I mean, it has its own charm, so to speak, right? So, yeah, I was trying to find in the background that particular watch, but no chance for. Yeah, Juan Carlos the First. That's who it is. Let's see if I can find the. Unfortunately, not. Anyway.
But I tend to agree with what you're saying. I think you know what it is. It's the you have to appreciate the watch long enough that the DLC wears in more than one way. But initially, it just looks like a big gouge or two big gouges. And if you can't get over that, which I can't, then you never get to the point where it looks somewhat evenly worn down, like it's just worn down as opposed to just abused. In any case, with that, I do appreciate you letting me on. I've had a very long day. I've been cutting boards of wood and repairing things all day long. So I'm going to go. I think I'm just going to go pass out. I don't think I have it. Need to even take a shower. I'm grimy. I'm going to go pass out. It was good to see you again. Congratulations. Hodinkee, you really should link notable personalities in your articles. I think that's fair. So you can issue a correction and drop a link. I will be seeing you again soon. And for those of you who have not considered subscribing to the Patreon, again, I'm going to tell you, it's worthwhile. There were 2 newsletters in the past 24 hours, links to everything, and I think it's definitely worthwhile. But if you can't, you heard it last night that you'll get a second chance to see some of the exclusive content through upcoming YouTube subscriptions on the Young Brando channel. Young Brando Watches and Style channel.
Thank you so much.
So it was good to see you again, Matt.
Thank you for teaching me business 101, Ali. I always appreciate you. I
appreciate how humble you are, but I do think it is a worthwhile investment. So you guys have a good night, and talk to you later, man.
Take care. Bye. Thanks for jumping on the panel and talking watches with me, Ali. And thank you for playing along when Archie Luxury was here as well. I love that guy, but it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be. I'm doing fine on my own. As much as I respect the OG, I am happy to go my own way. It's for the most part unnecessary friction. Not sure if I want to deal with everything that is going on in terms of the drama and people in the chat. And hey, man, I have trust issues. What can I do? This is lot 67. We are back to the Bonhams Fine Watches auction that is going to take place in London on New Bond Street tomorrow. And we have a Glashütte Original that was bought on January 1st, 2008. 2008. This is a Panomatic Lunar, which, pardon me, catches usually a lot of flack for looking too much like another Glasutic brand's watch. I don't even need to tell you what that brand is and what that watch is. But I think by and large, except perhaps for this particular model, the Glashütte Original has a very interesting catalog of watches, both in terms of their archive that extends all the way back to the wake of the German unification in the 90s. There is a glorious decade that they had with many interesting pieces before the Swatch Group's acquisition, and many interesting watches after that too. The Panomatic Lunar perhaps looks too much like the Lange one, but I think still holds its own. Certainly as a value proposition, it is something to consider. In this case, you get that asymmetric dial with the oversized date indicator, as well as the moon phase. For this piece from early 2008, which comes with its certificate of authenticity, product literature, original presentation box, and outer packaging. The pre-auction estimate is £3,000 to £4,000 sterling. That was lot 67. We have a very beautiful and interesting Rolex Prince from the original generation, so to speak, from the 30s. The Rolex Prince was their contribution to the genre of Art Deco design, Art Deco watches. In this case, you have a jump hour version of the Prince. Very fascinating, absolutely rare. As you see, there's an opening for the digital expression of the hour at 12 o'clock, a sector dial at around 30 minutes for the seconds, and a rectangular dial for the indication of the minutes as well. This is a piece in stainless steel with a hand-wound caliber. The reference number is 1491. The dimensions of the case, 23 by 35. Very beautiful piece in a decent enough condition, and a relatively well preserved dial as well. A very beautiful watch, potentially a target of opportunity, but I'm assuming that there would be more than one person bidding on a watch like this. This is lot 75 for a Rolex Prince jump hour watch from the 1930s. The reference number is 1491 with a stainless steel case, 23 by 35 millimeter are the dimensions, and as you see, it wears quite nicely on the wrist with substantive presence as well. The pre-auction estimate for the watch is 5,000 to 7,000 pounds sterling. Hey, GD, nice to see you, man. We have already taken a look yesterday about the Grana at number 77, ostensibly one of the rarest Dirty Dozen watches, one of the 12 suppliers to the British Ministry of Defense during the Second World War for these field watches. That piece had an estimated value of 15,000 to 20,000 pounds sterling. And at lot 78, we had a mill sub, reference 5513, an example that was supplied to the Royal Navy in mid 70s. Lot number 78 is expected to realize a final hammer price of 70 to 90,000. Again, we're looking at tomorrow's Bonhams Fine Watches auction. If you want me to pay attention to any particular pieces here that I may have skipped over, that I have discussed yesterday, or that you perhaps want me to delve into with more horological and historical detail, feel free to send in the lot number with a super chat. If you have any other watch related questions whatsoever, feel free to send them in as well. I think I'm going to spend the rest of the day, unless someone jumps in to talk watches with me, to go through the rest of the listings for this auction. Let's go all the way to the end. There are a couple of discontinued Rolex pieces, so let's continue with lot number 104. This is the Milgauss Z Blue. The reference number is 116400 GV. Of course, the piece has a blue somber style that has quite a distinct appearance when it comes to its combination with that green tinted crystal. The Milgauss was Rolex's family of pieces that were made as engineers' watches, that were made for scientists, for the thinking man, so to speak, with the soft iron inner case. They also established what is called the Faraday cage and gave the watch anti-magnetic properties. And I guess a lot of that mystique and a lot of that sort of utility has already been eclipsed for quite a long time in an age where a lot of other brands use silicone hairsprings all across their selection. And the Milgauss was discontinued and currently completely removed from their lineup. It was a good run though, from 2007 to 2023 almost, so roughly 15 years of existence, even though the white dial was already discontinued. This particular piece is also quite iconic thanks to its orange accents, which include that lightning bolt sweep center seconds hand, as well as the writing of the model name right under Rolex Oyster Perpetual. This was apparently someone's Valentine's Day gift just a few years ago, purchased on February 13th, 2020. This is lot 104 for the now discontinued 116400 GW Rolex Milgauss Z Blue. The piece is expected to fetch an amount somewhere between 7,000 to 9,000 US dollars. I don't know why I keep saying US dollars. Obviously, I meant pounds sterling. 7 to 9,000 pounds sterling is the pre-auction estimate for this watch. We have also the previous generation of the Air King, which was replaced by the new model that integrated the Air King into the professional lineup in a more solidified manner at Watches and Wonders 2022. This is a piece that was purchased on October 29th, 2019. Very quickly, the two aesthetic differences that you can notice is, of course, the absence of the newly added 0 that makes the 5-minute marker a double digit, and of course this reference 116900 also lacks sound guards. We're not even mentioning of course the updated caliber, which significantly upgrades the power reserve, and of course the changed proportions of the watch as well. I believe it's also the case that the 369 here is not loomed, whereas in the new model 126900 they are actually filled with loom. This particular example again is from 2019. It comes with its international warranty card, product literature, hang tag, as well as the box, presentation box, and outer packaging. Here's the Rolex Air King reference 116900 at lot number 103 with a pre-auction estimate of 5,000 to 7,000 pounds sterling. We are continuing our preview of the Bonhams Fine Watches auction that is coming up tomorrow. in London on New Bond Street, starting at 2 p.m. in local time. We are looking at a relatively new 5168G. This is the increasingly popular extra jumbo version of the Aquanaut. These white gold versions that come either in this khaki green color scheme or the blue, both with their matching tropic rubber straps, are in fact in a larger size than the 5167, the jumbo modern version. Pardon me, I think the case diameter is around 42 millimeters for these white gold versions. Here, the piece has the very popular khaki green dial and the tropical strap that sits really nice and flush to the case and the lugs, and in a very distinct but also relatively subtle way replicates the globescape pattern on the dial. The piece is offered practically as a full set, as it includes the presentation box, outer packaging, certificate of origin, the original receipt, product literature, and a museum pamphlet. The white gold 5168 was released in 2017, which marked the 20th anniversary of the Aquanaut's release, with the Aquanaut itself having first launched in 1997 as an iteration of the Nautilus. It's always been said that the Aquanaut was the brainchild of Laurent Ferrier, who was at the time the head of the creations department at Patek Philippe. Creations just being a fancy name for design. This particular piece apparently is from July 2022. And at lot number 101, it is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere between 50 to 70,000 pounds sterling. At lot 100, we're looking at one of the most interesting pieces, one of the premium lots of this auction. This is really a fascinating piece because it packs so much into a case that is 37 millimeters in this cushion style and only 7.3 millimeters thick, which makes this piece, at the time of its introduction in 2010, the thinnest column wheel split seconds chronograph. But as you can see, it's not only that, it is also a perpetual calendar monopusher split seconds chronograph in platinum. Again, that's cushion styled case in incredibly compact proportions of 37 millimeters in diameter and 7.3 meters in thickness. Beautiful balance of black and red accents on the dial, with the moon phase located at 12 o'clock, a pointer date at 6 o'clock. You also have a number of aperture at and around that pointer date for day of the week, for the month, and also, of course, for day and night indicator, as well as a leap year indicator. You have a 60-minute totalizer at 3 o'clock and continuous running seconds at 9 o'clock as well, with all the chronograph hands, including the smaller hand in the minute totalizer rendered in fire red. There's also a red contrast stitching on the classic black alligator strap 2. The single button for chronograph functions is located at 2 o'clock, start, stop, reset, and there is an additional pusher integrated onto the crown for the rattrapante split seconds function. Here is a glimpse onto the CHR 27-525 PS. And it's a Patek Grand Complication watch that was introduced in 2010. And at the time of its introduction, it was the thinnest column wheel split second chronograph. Very elegant piece, very rare piece, very unique looking and sporty piece that is one of the absolute oddball collectible Patek Philippe's to go around. This is once again the 5951P, which comes as a full set, including the additional spare solid platinum case back. This is lot 100 for the Patek Philippe single button perpetual calendar split second chronograph 5951P. The piece is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere between 220,000 to 280,000 pounds sterling. Please hit the like button if you have enjoyed the show and if you have learned anything from it. If you would like to join the discussion, feel free to hit the StreamYard link. If you would like to contribute, you know how. The links are included in the video description. You can, of course, always pose your questions with a super chat. And otherwise, join the conversation in the chat as well. I appreciate your presence and support. We're looking at lot 99, 5712 was quite a niche option in its way, in its time. It followed very quickly on the back of 3712, which was introduced in 2005 and discontinued in 2006 with this reference number's appearance. Early on, and through most of its existence in the catalog, it had to stay in the shadow of the 5711, the modern jumbo. However, both thanks to its asymmetric dial, the romantic complication of the moon phase indicator, and its elegant micro rotor caliber, which gives it a remarkably slender profile, even as it is much more complicated than a simple time and date watch. The 5712 over the years has really gained in leaps and bounds and is today very popular and very desirable in its own way. Of course, 3712 being so extremely rare due to its limited production is even more valuable on the secondary market, even more desirable in the auction circuits. But before we get into that, this is the 5712. As you can see, it is in a very well preserved condition, even though it's a watch that was purchased on May 4th, 2012. It does come with the product literature, its certificate of origin, as well as the original presentation box and the outer packaging. That is lot 99 for a Patek Philippe Nautilus moon phase, reference 5712A in stainless steel. The piece is expected to fetch an amount somewhere between 60,000 to 80,000 pounds sterling. Lot number 98 is Breguet Tourbillon, which not only integrates one of the signature mechanisms that is associated with the proper name, Breguet. It also brings together a regulator dial layout that is beautifully decorated, of course, with the dials traditionally produced out of gold blanks and engine turned by hand according to the best traditions of the Breguet manufacture. Today, the hands are fashioned out of stainless steel and heat blued. And you can also find two secret signatures of Breguet on that frosted track for the hours that are marked in Roman numerals. On two separate plaques, so you have the signature of the brand at around the traditional 9 o'clock and the number for the caliber at where you would conventionally have 3 o'clock, beautifully polished tourbillon bridge and a tourbillon cage at 6 o'clock that also doubles as a subsidiary dial for seconds with an heat blued seconds hand that's sitting on its pivot. A lovely exhibition back with a partially skeletonized rotor that brings the initial of the brand into sharp relief. The piece is executed in platinum with a 40 millimeter case. The watch comes on a leather strap, but with its matching platinum folding clasp. And as you see, the decoration of the caliber, especially on its bridge plates, has many elements that are done by freehand engraving. A beautiful watch, very unique, but also exquisitely rendered in a way that shows all the interesting strengths of Breguet as a modern manufacturer. This is the Breguet Classique Complication tourbillon with the regulator dial, reference 5307 in a 40 millimeter platinum case. The piece has an estimated value of 35,000 to 40,000 pounds sterling. It basically comes as a full set, as you can see here. Speaking of regulator dials, here is St. Peter's favorite watch. Of course, he likes the one that is in the current lineup, the annual calendar with the regulator dial. Here you're looking at the 5235G. This particular model, this particular complication is represented in the current lineup by 5235G, which has a pink gold case and similarly vertically brushed dial, rendered in that case in charcoal gray with matching pink gilt accents. In this case, you have a white gold case, which is 40.5 millimeters, almost all dial, with an anthracite gray vertically brushed main dial, which serves as a backdrop to very balanced and oversized subdials. The one at 12 indicating the minutes, the one at 6 serving as a subsidiary dial for the seconds, and you have a triangle that is fashioned by the alignment of these 3 openings on the dial. At 6 o'clock, you have the date. At around 10 o'clock, you have the day of the week. And at around 2 o'clock, you have the month with the Patek Philippe signature. At 3 o'clock, white gold with blue accents. the modern padellone, so to speak, a watch that is all dial for this Patek Philippe annual calendar with the regulator dial 5235G in white gold or gray gold, 40.5 millimeter case. The piece is accompanied by the setting pin, the product literature, certificate of origin, as well as its box and papers. Regulator dials harken back to regulator clocks that, for a better part, in the horological past, served as centerpieces for any watch manufacturer, for all the repair and service workshops, because thanks to their precision that put also the minute hands at the center of the dial, they have allowed the watchmakers to set and synchronize all the watches and clocks that went through those places with utmost precision. Similar regulator clocks were also used in railroad stations, railway stations, because they're synchronizing all the clocks and pocket watches of conductors was, of course, a matter of life and death. This is lot 94 for a Patek Philippe annual calendar with the regulator dial 5235G. The piece has a pre-auction estimate of 22,000 to 28,000 US dollars. Pound sterling, I mean. I'm sorry. 94, 22,000 to 28,000 pounds sterling is the pre-auction estimate. Just so you guys know, I'll be back at noon my time tomorrow. I look forward to seeing some of you, especially those of you who are in continental Europe and the UK. At lot 92, we are looking at Jaeger-LeCoultre triple calendar piece in a 40 millimeter stainless steel case. This is a piece purchased in January of 2010. It does come with its box and outer packaging, as well as a setting pin, hang tags, the warranty papers, and product literature. A beautiful silver dial, alpha hands for the hour, minutes, power reserve indicator, and even the seconds, which are expressed in a subsidiary dial at 6 o'clock, which in its turn encircles an aperture for the moon phase indicator. The date is indicated along the perimeter of a silver dial with this crescent tipped hand. There are also two openings for the day of the week at around 9 o'clock and the month at 3 o'clock. And the power reserve is shown in an upward facing fan-like scale at around 12 o'clock. The hands for hour and minutes are subtly loomed as well. The watch has very modern proportions. It has also an exhibition case back, which will give you a peek into that triple calendar moon phase movement, which is self-winding with a full rotor that has a supplemental 22 carats gold edge for the rotor as well. That is lot 92. It is expected to fetch an amount somewhere in the range between 4,000 to 6,000 pounds sterling. At lot 90, we are looking at a triple calendar Breguet piece. Very beautiful watch here in a traditional 36 millimeter case. All the signature visual codes of the Breguet are there. A dial that is produced out of a gold blank and guilloche decorated by hand. That is complemented with heat blued stainless steel hands that are Breguet styled for hour and minutes. A serpentine hand that indicates the dates across the perimeter of the center dial, which has hobnail decoration. Above 6 o'clock, there's an aperture for the moon phase indicator. Above the plaque for the brand signature, and under 6 o'clock, you have the two aperture for the day of the week and the month. Breguet frosted track for the hours, which are in Roman numerals. You also have a sapphire cabochon that caps off the crown. Very beautiful dial, very elegant white gold piece for this triple calendar Breguet dress watch in a 36 millimeter case. The reference number is 3040 for this piece that was bought in mid-90s. This lot is accompanied by its box and papers and also includes some product literature and an additional alligator strap. This classy dress watch at lot 90 offers a great value proposition, if you ask me, especially elsewhere on the secondary market, but even on this auction, the estimated value of the piece is 8,000 to 12,000 pounds sterling. We're slowly winding down, but still have at least half a dozen watches to consider. So please don't hesitate to hit the like button. Lots 89 is probably one of the most popular watches nowadays in Patek Philippe's catalog. This is 5164R. The Aquanaut travel time, already in its stainless steel version, has been a very popular watch since it combines the Aquanaut, which is a design in ascendance for the last 5 years or so, with the travel time complication, which has proven immensely popular. Of course, it helped that the 5164A was spotted on John Mayer's wrist, and it comes highly recommended by him. For better or worse, he has quite an oversized influence in today's mainstream world of watches. The pink gold version is a little more rarefied and perhaps a little more elite in a way, not necessarily in, anyway. Chocolate brown dial matches with the tropical strap, which of course subtly matches the pattern of the dial as well. In addition to the pointer dates, the dial has two openings which serve as the day and night indicators for the local and home time. And of course, there's an additional hour hand which can be used for your reference time. The travel time complication was, in fact, invented and given to Patek Philippe by the same person who made the world time wristwatch, Louis Cotier. These pushers, which are now pushers, allow you to jump the hour hand in 1 hour increments back and forth. A similar mechanism was first introduced in a travel time Calatrava watch in 1958. That was the reference number 2597. Initially, in fact, it was simply introduced as 2597 HS, which stood for heure sautante, jumping hour, since it had actually a single hour hands that could be moved around in 1 hour increments back and forth. as the person traveled, as the wearer traveled through different time zones. In later iterations of the watch, there was, in fact, a second hour hand added to the mix, which formed the basis, of course, of today's travel time movements, still building on the same patent from the 1950s that was made for Patek by Louis Cotier, the same person who came up with the world time wristwatch. You're looking at a 5164R that comes with its box and papers, purchased on June 21st, 2021, lot number 89, is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere between 50 to 70,000 pounds sterling. We're slowly coming to the end. Please hit the like button if you would like to support this stream. You know how. The links are available in the chat. They're now rolling in the crawling ticker, or crawling in the rolling ticker, whichever way, I don't know. They're always included in the video description. I'm looking at the last 3 watches, let's put it this way. Speaking of travel time, here's lot 88. This is the Calatrava Pilot travel time, purchased on January 21st, 2020. The reduced size version, which is a 37.5 millimeter pink gold case. The reference number is 7234R. These pieces, when they initially came out, seemed to have attracted some popularity, some interest, but over time, I think they have grown cold, even though Patek insists on their existence within the lineup. I don't think they are all that popular. The complication, the configuration remains the same, with a pointer date at 6 o'clock, with an additional hour hand for reference time, and the 2 pushers that allow you to jump the hour hand back and forth as you travel through different time zones. And of course, again, you have 2 porthole-like openings for day and night indication for both local and home time. Generous amounts of lume on the dial, which is chocolate brown, as Patek likes to match that with the pink gold case. That was lot 88 for a Calatrava Pilot travel time by Patek. The reference number is 7234R. The piece has a pre-auction estimate of 20 to 30,000 pounds sterling. We're looking at lot 85. This is a special edition Breitling made for Bentley an oversized watch which integrates elements from Bentley's design into this chronograph. And those elements are, of course, the decoration on the bezel, the grill that renders the dial partially open worked, and of course the distinctive oscillating weight for the self-winding movements. You're looking at the Breitling for Bentley from year 2016. The reference number is RB0611 with the B06 self-winding chronograph movements in an 18 karat 49 millimeter gold case. The piece comes with its international warranty, the Breitling travel case outer packaging, as well as its chronometer certification, not to mention the product literature. Lot 85 is expected to realize a final hammer price between 8 to 12,000. I'm sorry it didn't work. You can always send something through PayPal or Cash App if you would like. It's the thought that counts, as they say, Johnny. That's quite all right. And the last watch for tonight, we're looking at Bluesy. We're looking at a Bluesy. This is, of course, not the more recent renewed 41 millimeter Submariner. What you are looking at is the reference number 116613 LB. So the super case Submariner 40 with the Cerachrome blue bezel and the sunburst blue dial from February 2020. The piece comes with its warranty card as well as its presentation box, hang tags, product literature, and outer packaging. One of the classic and iconic two-tone watches by Rolex in the previous iteration of the model, 116613 LB, lunettes bleu, with the blue ceramic bezel and the sunburst dial in the bimetal expression, stainless steel case, combined with gold, 18 karat yellow gold fixtures on the dial, including the hands, 18 karat rotating bezel with gold accents on the ceramic bezel insert, 18 karat gold crown, as well as the 18 karat yellow gold polished center links on the oyster bracelets. This is the Rolex Submariner Bluesy at lot 84. Once again, reference 116613LB. The piece has a pre-auction estimate ranging between 8,000 to 12,000 pounds sterling. Bezels, thank you so much. $9.99. Does $9.99 work? Apparently it did. Two-tone bluesy. Thank you so much, Basil. So that actually concludes my coverage of the upcoming Fine Watches auction by Bonhams London. It is actually taking place tomorrow at 2 p.m. local time on New Bond Street. I've gone through most of the 105 lots. If you have any last minute requests or other watch related questions, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to attend to it. As I close, thank you again for your presence and support. Hit the like button if you haven't already. I want to remind you again that this is a completely autonomous and independent channel, which means that I'm fully in the service of my audience. It also means that I'm at the behest of my audience, since I don't have any sponsors. I don't have, I'm not in the pocket of the industry. I'm not shilling for any gray market profiteers. But any contribution you make goes directly back to the channel. I was actually trying to work this new ring light I bought. It came right into my eyes, so I didn't use it today. I will try to integrate it to the setup somehow, but you know how these things work. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks, I will have had it my little bookcase. I'm planning to add a couple of more things, maybe a side table, but eventually another camera, so I can actually sit comfortably and still remain in control of my show, because this whole idea of me having to my English is failing me at this point, having to kind of band down while I'm running the live show actually ends up hurting me a little more than what I used to do in my kitchen, which is very strange, of course. But anyway, at least I feel good for now. Thank you again. Any contributions you make on PayPal, Cash App, or Super Chats, again, get directly invested directly back to the channel. More importantly, it comes back to you in terms of the quality and quantity of content. Living up to that, I actually will have again at least an hour-long stream, perhaps even a 2-hour-long stream at noon my time tomorrow, in about 12 hours, in a little more than 12 hours. So stay tuned for that. I look forward to seeing most of you then, especially people from the UK and continental Europe. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to find me, on Instagram. I'm gonna drop the link for that. If you want, you can always write to me via email. And there is my email address, lordhellespont5 at gmail.com. That's lordhellespontv@gmail.com. If you have any watch-related questions, feel free to reach out to me. The links are pinned right now in the chat, so you can always click and check out the services on Patreon. I think the tiers are very self-explanatory. You have options to simply contribute, but at my inner circle tier, I am actually treating my most ardent, most loyal supporters to exclusive content where I share with them at least 3, usually more, links to watch deals that I hunt for you online. And they're accompanied by pretty detailed recordings which hash out all the horological and historical details as they relate to that particular complication, brand, uh, model, or era. So whether you take advantage of deals in real time or not, they also end up being quite informative and educational. Check it out. Some of that content will eventually also be available on YouTube through the memberships that I'm trying to introduce sooner than later, but you will have them by July. So feel free to stay tuned for that. I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Thank you again for your support and presence. Please feel free to hit the like button on your way out if you haven't done so already. Once again, I want to thank the people who super chatted tonight: Corrado Galizia, St. Peter, Jake Brooks, and Bezos. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Until then, stay safe, wear your watches, and enjoy them. I'll see you in the next one.